focused on you.
First at 4, the St. Louis Circuit Attorney weighs in on the guilty verdict of Daniel Riley. Last night, a jury found Riley guilty of causing the horrific crash that took Janae Edmondson's legs. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. I'm Kay Quinn.
And I'm Brent Solomon. Riley faces nearly 19 years in prison after a jury convicted him Thursday afternoon. 5 on your side's Holden Kerwicki joins us now after hearing from the city's chief prosecutor today. Holden, he says this verdict sends a clear message.
That's exactly right, Brent. This case not only upended the lives of Janae Edmondson and her family, but also led to significant change within the circuit attorney's office. This morning, the circuit attorney told reporters that Janae Edmondson's emotional testimony likely had a profound impact on the jury.
I wake up in the morning every day and I'm immediately reminded of what happened. And I never want anyone to experience the pain, the sadness, and the helplessness I felt.
After 3 days in court, the jury found Daniel Riley guilty of assault and armed criminal action for the crash that injured Edmondson. In the days after the crash, we learned Riley was out on bond at the time of the incident, and he had violated the terms of his release more than 40 times. Today, Gore says that this case helped to lead to an overhaul of how his office handles cases.
I have emphasized with our assistant circuit attorneys that they need to really focus on monitoring what's going on with defendants who are on bond and taking appropriate action where that's necessary.
After yesterday's conviction, the jury then recommended a 19-year prison sentence. The judge will ultimately decide after another hearing how much of that sentence that Riley will serve. Gore told reporters today he is satisfied with the recommended punishment, but knows there is still work to be done in his office.
All right, Holden, thanks. So right now, St. Louis County Police investigating a murder in North County. Police got a call for a shooting on Glenboro Drive in Velda City. Well, that's when they found a man dead closer to West Florissant Avenue and Gaylord Drive. Police say if you know anything, call Crime Stoppers at 1-866-371-TIPS.
All right, let's take a live look downtown. It's been a dreary, rainy Friday in the bi-state. Weather First meteorologist Scott Connell here to tell us if we're done with the rain. Scott?
Most of that rain is pushing away from St. Louis, and while we can't guarantee a few more drops, we have dropped that weather alert since the evening rush hour is not going to be all that soggy. We talked about that yesterday, that the widespread rain mainly focused in the morning, and we weren't sure if it was going to linger into the evening. And odds are now we're going to be mainly dry this evening. You can see traffic out in St. Charles rolling right along. And then we flip the camera and go over into Illinois here in O'Fallon. Traffic along 64 there in O'Fallon, Illinois, rolling right along. We still have a few little light showers around the Metro East. Nothing really substantial here until you get closer to the Interstate 57 corridor. You've had some pretty good rain over around Vandalia in the last hour. That's pushing farther to the east now. Kim Monday down to Salem and Centralia. That's where the focus is here for the next little bit to see a bit of heavier rainfall. Now, the clouds are sticking with us as we head through the overnight hours. And sure, there could be a few more sprinkles, but we're not expecting any more significant rain in the metro area. Rain chances overall decreasing. It will be cooler for the weekend, but sunshine increases on Saturday as the clouds roll out. We'll track the rest of your weekend for you and talk about a warm up for next week in just a few minutes, Kay.
All right, we'll see you then. Thank you, Scott. Right now, critics and supporters are describing President Biden's State of the Union speech very differently. Touting his accomplishments, he took on critics and hecklers, but heading into the general election wasn't enough to sway voters. NBC's Alice Barr takes a look.
The President of the United States.
Fresh off a fiery campaign-style address to a huge national audience, President Biden shifting to the ground game in a series of battleground states. First up, Pennsylvania. Many voters here feel the president's forceful State of the Union delivery eased concerns about his age.
I was so happy I jumped out of my seat at the end.
Others want to see him back up his words.
They say things. I like action, so we'll see what happens as he moves forward.
As the clock ticks down to win over voters before the November election, President Biden went after his Republican rival.
You can't love your country only when you win.
On issue after issue, including abortion rights.
He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it.
Without ever saying his name. Former President Trump released a new campaign ad today, splicing some stumbles from the speech with moments from his past State of the Unions.
America will be empowered by our aspirations.
Alabama Senator Katie Britt, in her intense Republican rebuttal, slammed President Biden's border policies.
This crisis is despicable, and the truth is it is almost entirely preventable.
The president sought to shift the blame to House Republicans for rejecting a bipartisan border security bill that former President Trump opposed.
We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it.
President Biden looking to flip the script.
The issue facing our nation isn't how old we are, it's how old are our ideas.
In an unofficial kickoff to the 2024 general election campaign. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Local leaders are reacting to the president's address. Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski expressed support for the president in a statement. She said in part, quote, "In his first term in office, President Biden has made real progress for working families." She also acknowledges there's work to be done, but is optimistic about the president's vision for the future.
As Democrats applaud the president's vision, Republicans continue to criticize the president's handling of key issues. In contrast to Budzinski, Missouri Senator Eric Schmidt does not think working families are better off under Biden. He joins political editor Mark Maxwell on this week's episode of The Record. He says the economy under President Biden is hurting you.
You know, working families, like I said, are spending $10,000 more a year for the same stuff that they were just 3 years ago. That's real. Those are numbers that impact working families who are struggling to make ends meet. Truth of the matter is the blame lies with him.
You can catch our full interview with Senator Schmidt on this week's episode of The Record. That's Sunday night after Sports Plus. A 5-year highway improvement project now underway on a major St. Louis interstate. The changes you can expect to see if you drive on I-55.
We know what you'll be doing 1 month from today. Tips on how to safely watch the solar eclipse. And it is International Women's Day, and we want to highlight some St. Louis women who've made a difference. Annie Malone was a businesswoman who would go on to donate thousands to help orphans in St. Louis. Her generosity paved the way for what we now know as Annie Malone Children and Family Services Center.